Hey everyone, I'm Mike Lowe and we are in Madden 24, but we're 10 years into the future. We're doing a stress test to see how the game holds up, but also just to look around at some of the names and faces that may be familiar. We're going to see what the best teams look like, who the best players are, and just really look at any maybe bugs and glitches that people are concerned about, and just, again, kind of doing a 10-year stress test. We may even take it a little bit further, but let's go ahead and jump in and just start looking around the league. To start with a little bit of context, we're going to start kind of at the top team level. So we're going to be looking at the season recaps here for the last 10 years, starting in 2023. So we have Dallas and the Ravens in the Super Bowl. And if you want to pause the video at any of these points to really look more deeply at who's winning the awards and whatnot, you certainly can. So Cowboys getting a Super Bowl win there. Patriots the next year over the Falcons, 38-31. That's the 2024 season. We jump ahead, and it's the Chiefs again making an appearance. Once again, the Cowboys as well, so a nice little run there for them. In 2026, it's back-to-back for the Chiefs there, going back to Super Bowl I believe. Wasn't that the matchup there? And Dallas, again, another Super Bowl here, 27-24 over the Browns. The Chargers versus the Giants in a very low-scoring affair in the 2028 season recap. We have the Ravens back again with another Cowboys Super Bowl appearance in 2029. Up to 2030, it's the Falcons 24-17 over the Jaguars. And then back-to-back championships for the Falcons, 24-23 over the Chiefs. And then finally, it's the Browns over the Buccaneers, 24-17. So we see a lot of repeat teams, at least making appearances: Ravens, Cowboys, Chiefs, even the Browns, and so on. So a lot of teams repeating there. Still don't see my Detroit Lions making an appearance anywhere in the Super Bowl, so pretty wild. But let's go ahead and just take a look around the league and see what these teams are made up of and how they had such nice seasons. I wanted to stress test the relocation option a little bit here with the AI. So I had it turned on and I let the AI pretty much do what they wanted to do within reason. Like, they still had to qualify for relocation. They couldn't just up and do it, but they did have the right to do it. And I'm happy to report that only one team moved, and it was a somewhat realistic move. The Houston Texans moved to Austin. And so I think you could make an argument 10 years from now, maybe. It's probably still unlikely. Houston's obviously a huge city, even bigger than Austin, but it's not unfathomable. I like that it made sense geographically to stay in the AFC South there and to stay in Texas. So I don't really know why Austin would have a team called the Huskies. That's probably the last dog you'd ever want to own in Austin in the summers there. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool, and they looked to be a pretty decent team too. So all the other teams stayed put, and I was happy to see that this didn't go too crazy after 10 years. If we sort by the top overall players across the league, there's only 199 overall, and that's Dalton Matthews, who of course is a fake player here for the Washington Commanders. And really, it looks like the top three players are all fake players that were brought into the universe. We have outside linebacker Rashad McClain as well, who is playing for the Titans, and then James Ogletree, receiver for the Jets. As far as real-life players who are the top in the league, Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell of my Detroit Lions, who looks like he's hurt. So that's actually pretty good to see. If anything, I like not seeing like 5 and 6 99 overall quarterbacks. Again, we are using some XP slider adjustments as far as player progression and things like that, and player regression. Seems to be working pretty well, but let's keep looking a little bit deeper. Let's start going through the defensive players, and we'll just go position by position. And what I'm looking at are just the 90 and up players. Of course, you can look at whatever you'd want here in the video as well if you just want to pause and take a closer look. But ideally, we're just looking at how the progression worked on the top end here. So Carlos Young, fake player. Buffalo's, is it Greg Rizzo? I think is how you say his name. He is a 90 overall. So just two left ends that are 90s. We also have two right ends that are 90s, both real life players in Micah Parsons and Will Anderson Jr. Micah Parsons, by the way, up top the leaderboard or close to it. He's in like the top 5 for all-time NFL sacks here 10 years later. So we'll take a look at that and how that all looks. Defensive tackle, we get a little bit thicker, pun intended there, but a lot of teams start 2 defensive tackles, so that's not a huge surprise. And again, progression looks pretty good. We have David Kirkland, Lorenzo Bynes, and Dexter Lawrence II there. So one real-life player, couple of younger players who were brought in as fictitious players. Outside linebacker Akeem Booker, fake player. He's the only 90 and above left outside linebacker. If we go to middle, We have two players, Jalen Larson and Thomas Lucas. So again, two fictional players there atop there. And this makes sense. I mean, most of these players are getting older, and even with the regression sliders being adjusted, we should be seeing guys who are like 27, 26 as the best in the league at their position. So Rashad McClain, same thing here for the Titans. And we saw him earlier. He's one of the top 5 players in the league. Raekwon Jackson of the Buffalo Bills. So again, the disparity here looks really good, the way it's kind of spread across the league. I think it looks really, really good. Chad Jones at corner, Patrick Surtain the second, of course, real player, Travis Wilford, Donnell Crosby, and Sauce Gardner at 33 is still a 90 overall. Dylan James and Jeremiah Watson. So just two real life players there in Sauce and Patrick Surtain, looking really, really good. Jose Drummond of the Steelers there, the only 90 and above free safety. At strong safety, we get two players, Tevin Alexander and CJ Barrett. So real quick, we can also just take a quick look at kicker. We have real life Evan McPherson, and then punters, just two guys in the 80s there. So the sliders seem to be working really well. This looks pretty good balance here on the defense. Let's take a look at the offensive side. We're going to work our way backwards here, starting with the right tackles, but Penei Sewell, 97 overall. Heard yesterday in a podcast he was the youngest left tackle to ever play in the NFL when he started at left tackle as a rookie because Taylor Decker was hurt. So thought that's pretty cool, but he's had a really nice career. He's still only 32 years old, 10 years into this league here, and it's, my goodness, that's awesome. So Reed Bean, that's an amazing name. He is with the Saints there. He's a 91 overall. Right guard, we have nobody who's at least a 90, so maybe the interior is a little thinner. Same thing at center. We get a couple guys who are 88. Left guard, same thing. So a little thinner on the inside as far as progression. We don't have a single interior offensive lineman, and we only have 3 linemen overall who are at 90 and above. So there's something to keep in mind as you're watching. Again, I'm using a custom slider set, but still something just to maybe keep an eye on is how your positions would play out. Maybe do a test run before you go into your official league, just to kind of see, so you know player value and how to properly connect that to other player value and things like that. But Tristan Wirfs is the only left tackle who's a 90 and above. So let's get into the skill positions here. Kyle Pitts, not a huge surprise there. He's a 96 overall at 32, still just crushing it. Jamie Cook, 93 overall tackle, and then Mike Freeman, tight end, 93 tight end for him as well. So looking pretty good there. Receiver, James Ogletree, we saw. Jamar Chase, real life player, we saw. Devontae Smith still up there, 92 overall. JSN, 91 overall. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 91. And then that's it. So a pretty good mix of real life. Actually, there's only the one fictitious player, James Ogletree, who's had an awesome career so far. It looks like award-winning wide receiver, fullback, nobody. Halfback, Bijan Robinson is another player we'll look at when we look at the career trajectories and we look at the stats. He has had an amazing career so far. So he's 10 years in now. He is a 31-year-old halfback still playing with the Falcons, who, of course, have made a bunch of Super Bowls and won back-to-back. So that's pretty cool. And he's the only player that's a 90 and above. You can see Kenneth Walker, the third, still on the list there. Let's go to quarterback. We saw Dalton Matthews. We now have Jerry Carroll, franchise quarterback there for the Saints. Dakota Lang, that's kind of an awesome name. It just sounds like a Green Bay Packer quarterback. That's pretty cool. So he is a 93. Lance Shields of the Vikings, also kind of a cool name. Did Vikings use Shields? I'm guessing they did. That's pretty sweet. Jose Jackson of the Giants. Jalen Hurts still playing at age 35 and still a 93 overall. CJ Stroud, who might be the best rookie quarterback when we started this here. He's the first one that we saw pop up at age 31. He is a 93. Sheldon Fitzsimmons for the Jets. Fictitious player, of course. Joe Burrow still there at 36. Lamar Jackson still there at 36. And Patrick Mahomes still playing at age 37. And I don't think that's super unrealistic. We, of course, saw Tom Brady play forever and ever, but players are just taking such better care of themselves, training, all that stuff. That stuff matters when you're talking about injury longevity. I know I'm no doctor, but there's a lot of conversations around like, oh, I don't know if you exercise or if you run, you're going to hurt yourself. But really, it's kind of the opposite. You're building up strength around those ligaments. You're building up strength in your muscle. And a lot of times things like that can help with injuries. And so I think as we've seen training, and again, I'm not a doctor, this is unofficial advice, but to me, it seems like as we've seen training increase and become more, I guess, specialized, we're seeing players play longer because they're taking better care of themselves, not just with exercise, but with diet and things like that. So keep drinking those smoothies, get those acai bowls. Trevor Lawrence still playing age 33, Justin Herbert still playing at age 35, and then that's it. So again, pretty good mix here of real versus fake. Of course, the younger players who are kind of in their prime, I think this makes sense that they're at the top. So we're going to keep going looking at some other things around the league, but I know there's going to be a lot of comments and questions about just really how the player evaluation looks, or just kind of how the player progression looks and things like that. So let me know your thoughts, but let's keep moving through. Looking at the superstar X factors across the league, as you'd expect, it's mostly the younger fictitious players, but there still are some real life guys still in the mix here. And so you've already seen a lot of these names, obviously, and you can see the real life names kind of appearing as they are older, of course. So again, pretty good balance here. I think this looks pretty darn good as far as just how talent is kind of dispersed amongst the league there. I think it seems to make a lot of sense. There's quite a few. And again, I did set these. Actually, I left this one at default. I think it's 50 you're going to see here or so. That's where the game's kind of aiming to be, is X Factor players, 50 of them. So pretty good balance there. I won't go through all of them, but you get the idea there of just kind of how things are looking with the X Factor players across the league. Okay, let's go through the NFL records. We'll start at the game level and we'll move to the season level, and then finally we'll get into the career level because I think it's pretty interesting there. So I'm really just scanning this year section, and we're just going to look for years, of course, that would have happened in the sim. So we don't have anything for passing yards. Passing touchdowns, let's see if there's anything in this list. Nothing there. Nothing here. So again, it's been pretty straightforward. We're getting some good players, but no like crazy games in the simulation. And maybe that's a bad thing a little bit. Maybe the games are a little too vanilla when they're being simulated. Here we have Devontae Smith in 2024 with 5 receiving touchdowns. But so far, that's the only thing that's popped up. We're now into catches for receivers, so nothing there. Defensive sacks, nothing there. I think you'll definitely see some sacks if you're playing games. You definitely see some records being broken. Nothing for interceptions. So game level, there's just that one record. Now, if we go to season level, we're starting at passing yards. Again, just looking in the yardage section, the year section here, and then we'll stop and examine if we see anything. 2024, Patrick Mahomes had 47 touchdowns there. So that ranks among one of the best seasons ever as far as passing touchdowns. We're now into rushing yards. Nothing there. Rushing touchdowns. 2026, Josh Jacobs has had a really nice career in this simulation. Jonathan Taylor. So they both had some massive amounts of touchdowns in those, and 2026 in particular. Some huge years there. 2025, we have a Jaguars receiver. I guess that's Chris Godwin with 1830 as for receiving yards. Pretty amazing season there, and that one's the only one. Receiving touchdowns. 2026, Deebo Samuel with the Raiders goes for 21 touchdowns. We have Jamar Chase with 20. Deebo again with 19 in 2027. So we get a few there popping up in receiving touchdowns. Catches. 2026, Justin Jefferson, back-to-back years there, going over 130. Wow, impressive. So that's kind of the peak of his career there. Godwin in 2025, and that's it. Looks pretty good. Defensive sacks, Parsons with 24. That's the record there for a season. So beating Strahan's in 2001, if you remember. So Micah Parsons in 2030, so just a few years ago. and he's had a really nice career. TJ Watt in 2028. Imagine that, 5 years from now. Still just crushing it there, getting 22 sacks, and that's it. Interceptions. Night Train Lane still leading the way there with 14 in 1952. That's interesting. So no one's really coming close to those numbers. Just quarterback plays improved so much. That's going to be hard. So career numbers, though, let's take a look. Passing yardage, NFL history. Do we have anybody that's appearing here that was in the game? It does not look like it. Passing touchdowns. Again, now we're scanning for names now because they don't have the years here, and we're just looking to see if there's anybody who. So Patrick Mahomes, of course, 497, and he was probably in the passing yards, and I just went over him. Yeah, so he's at the bottom there, 62,000, but he's still playing, so he'll definitely move up that list still. If we go into rushing, Josh Jacobs is now the 4th leading NFL rusher in history. He's passed Barry Sanders, so pretty amazing there. Bijan Robinson was at 7th in NFL history. Jonathan Taylor 8th. So we get it's kind of a decade of running backs there. We have 3 top 7 or top 10 running backs, which is pretty impressive. Rushing touchdowns, Pacheco. Again, Chiefs just scoring a lot of points. Josh Jacobs, who's moved around and now on the Buccaneers. Jonathan Taylor. It's interesting to see these guys stay with the same teams too. It's pretty cool. Nick Chubb's on there. So Kenneth Walker the third, Derrick Henry. It's running is the name of the game, it seems like, here with Madden 24. Receptions, total receptions. Justin Jefferson moves into 4th all time. Devontae Adams is on there. CeeDee Lamb, Hill, Diggs, and Kelsey. So quite a few there. Again, as much running as we're seeing, it's still a passing league, it looks like. Receiving yards for a career, Justin Jefferson, 4th all time. Devontae Adams quietly having a 5th best career at receiver. That's pretty awesome. Receiving touchdowns, Devontae Adams, 140. Jamar Chase, 137. Defensive sacks. So I mentioned this one earlier. We have Micah Parsons coming in 3rd all-time. He's still playing. He's 6 sacks away from tying Bruce Smith for the all-time sack record. Pretty awesome. TJ Watt also on there. Peppers, I'm sure, has retired by now. Garrett, I think, is still playing. That's it. So pretty cool. Defensive interceptions for a career. I don't know if we're going to have anyone on here. Again, just interceptions are just kind of a different animal in the modern NFL. So that's it. Yeah, so we saw quite a bit here in regards to just how the league is looking over 10 years. I would say if you're curious about anything else, let me know. These are easy to do, they're fun to put together, and you're going to do a 10-year sim and it's going to probably look a lot different than mine in some areas, but it'll probably look the same too. So let me know what you're seeing. I'd be curious to hear. I think the simulation engine holds up pretty well, especially when we're talking a console sports game. But let me know your thoughts. You can let me know here in the video. I'm also on Twitter at Michael47. And I appreciate you all checking out the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.